This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we're going to find out who would win in a fight between the Superman villain, Livewire, and the Black Panther villain, Klaw. Essentially, these are two energy beings, one composed of electricity and one composed of sound. So, yeah, we're going to find out who wins between electricity and sound, essentially.
Yeah, no idea who's going to win, so I can't wait to find out the answer later on in this episode.
Before that, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news to come out this past week, of which there was one major news item. According to Jeff Snyder, renowned Hollywood journalist, Deborah and Woll and Elden Henson will be returning as their characters of Karen Page and Foggy Nelson in Daredevil Born Again. It's great news.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you love listening and chatting about Marvel and DC? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier lets you listen to this podcast without ads and gives you access to its Discord chat group where you can chat with Johnny DC and Marvelous Joe. The Fantastic 4 tier gives you that and more with 2 bonus episodes each month, including bloopers and top 10 shows where Johnny and Joe count down your favourite Marvel and DC subjects. The X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of Dynamic Duel, where every month you help the host choose what to review and who to fight against each other. And finally, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier allows aspiring podcasters to create their own battle-focused show using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results to announce on your show. Pitch the twins your show via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by reaching out to them on social media. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Be sure to tune into the Max Destruction podcast, guys, part of the Dynamite Podcast Network, which last week found out who would win in a fight between Severus Snape from Harry Potter and Wong from Doctor Strange. This week, I'll actually be guesting on Ken's show as we find out who would win between Michael Keaton's Batman from the 1989 Batman and Matt Salinger's Captain America from the 1990 Captain America film. That's right. Max Destruction is doing a Marvel vs. DC episode, and if you want to find out who'd win between Batman and Captain America, at least those versions of the characters, listen to his show, Wednesday, January 15th.
Meanwhile, on the Sandro World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between your favorite anime characters. This week, we'll find out who would win between Killer Bee from Naruto against Black Star from Soul Eater.
And in the newest show in the Dynamite Podcast Network, Console Combat, hosts John and Dean find out who would win in fights between your favorite video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they speculated on who would win between Cervantes from Soul Calibur and Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. So be sure to check that out.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all of the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network.
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram and in our email newsletter for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question, we asked, who would you cast as the Sentry in the MCU's Thunderbolts film? And that's coming off of the news that Steven Yeun has departed that role for that movie. We got a lot of great answers. Let's go ahead and run down our honorable mentions as well as the No Prize winner.
Our first honorable mention goes to Scott Camacho, who said,
I'm going to go ahead and state the obvious and say Henry Cavill. I mean, he's worked with Superman, so you know he has the goody two-shoes parts of Sentry. And for the Void, his work with The Witcher and being a villain in Mission Impossible, I think he has the acting chops and the star power to pull that character off.
So I've heard this answer before, and I've always hated it. But now we know that Henry Cavill is not returning to the role of Superman. Sure, why not? Make him the Sentry. I actually think that would be really cool, and I would love to see the actor again in a superhero role.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy is very superhero-esque in his appearance. I think he'd be a fantastic Sentry. The character is often seen as an analog to DC's Superman. So, yeah, if he played Superman for DC, let's have him play the analog for Marvel. I think he'd be a great get.
It would also be like the ultimate troll from Marvel to Warner Brothers.
Exactly. I'm surprised, actually, Jonathan, you're going along with this because I think it's a great idea.
Well, this would be punishment for not #restoring the Snyderverse.
WB gets what's coming to them. Great answer, Scott Camacho. Our next honorable mention goes to his twin brother, Gil Camacho, who said,
Hey guys, Gilly Machi here. I know a lot of people's probably thinking Henry Cavill should be a good recruit for Sentry, just so we can punch a gut to DC, but since we both have Luke and Chris Hemsworth, I think it should be Liam Hemsworth. All right, guys, thank you.
Yeah, why not round out the Hemsworth brother trio and get Liam Hemsworth in the role as the Sentry? Now, some people may balk at the idea of casting both brothers in the MCU, but there's precedent given that Luke plays the thespian version of Thor in Thor Ragnarok and Love and Thunder. But also, the Sentry kind of looks like Thor in the comic books. You know, they're both like big buff dudes with long blonde hair.
Although Liam Hemsworth does look kind of weird with long, light-colored hair. Have you seen him as The Witcher? It's weird.
No. I don't think it's a bad option. I think it's a pretty solid option.
I think it could work, yeah. Great answer, Gil. Our final honorable mention goes to Matt Estes, who said,
Hey guys, Matt Estes here. Hey, I think Alexander Ludwig from Vikings, he played Bjorn Ironside, would be a great pick for the Sentry. He's got the look and he's got the acting chops.
Yeah, offhand, I didn't remember who Alexander Ludwig was until I looked him up, but I totally recognize him as the main villain of the first Hunger Games movie and from Vikings. The guy looks the part of the Sentry to a T. He has some big roles under his belt, and also, I don't think he'll cost Marvel a dime.
Yeah, honestly, there are a lot of actors from the Vikings series that could play superhero roles. I'm still waiting for Catherine Winnick to join DC in some kind of role. She needs to be there. She's awesome.
Yeah, I remember when she was the front runner on my wish list to play Captain Marvel. But great answer, Matt Estes. We want to give a quick shout out to Mitchell Smoothie, Cornelius Robinson, and Corey Wooten for taking the time to visit our website and record your answers. But the winner of this week's No Prize is John Speas and Ryan McMullen, who both gave the same answer. Let's hear both of them.
Hey guys, John Speas here. My pick for the Sentry would be Alexander Skarsgård. I know his father's already been in the MCU, but Alexander is tall. We know he can get fit from his time as Tarzan, and he's got that Swedish blonde hair that I think would work really, really well. So he is my pick, Alexander Skarsgård.
Hey guys, it's Ryan McMullen here. My choice for the Sentry would be Alexander Skarsgård, because that guy's got the look. All right, he could definitely be the Sentry. Nobody else, hands down, is him.
Yeah, both of these are great answers. Not only does Alexander Skarsgård have the look, though, he also has the intensity, I believe, for the role, which would be required to play a mentally unstable character like the Sentry.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Did you see him in The Northman? That was a great role for him.
No, but I saw the trailer for Infinity Pool because I was too afraid to watch the movie. And holy shit, this guy could act.
Yeah, he's a leading man. I have no doubt that he would make the perfect Sentry, and I think a lot of fans would be super excited to see him in the role because he is to a T the perfect Sentry. It needs to happen.
You know, I did see him in recently that I thought he was really good in. The final season of Succession. He was incredible in that role, like really menacing and like really intelligent. So yeah, that's the perfect way to describe the Sentry. If Kevin Feige cast Alexander Skarsgård in the role of the Sentry like tomorrow, I guarantee you MCU stock would go up. Fans would be all over that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would save the box office.
Do it, Kevin Feige. Do it for the fans.
So congrats to John Speas and Ryan McMullen. John is a longtime friend of the show. You know, him and his brother Adam have guested on this podcast on numerous occasions. They recently ended their nostalgic movie podcast, The Blast from Our Past, and we are super sad to see it gone. And Ryan McMullen, I think this is the first time we've heard from you. Way to crush it out of the gate.
Absolutely.
If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, this past week, we got some awesome news in regards to the Disney Plus upcoming television show, Daredevil Born Again. Now, we learned like a couple months ago that the entire series is being retooled under the new showrunner, Dario Scardapane. And with that news, Jeff Snyder is reporting via his blog, The Insnider, that Deborah Ann Woll and Elden Henson will be reprising their roles as Karen Page and Foggy Nelson in the upcoming Daredevil season. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's super exciting because previously we had heard the exact opposite of that they weren't returning because then Disney would have had to have paid the old Netflix writers as like creators of the show.
Yeah, something weird like that. But I'm glad that Scardapane realized that Foggy Nelson and Karen Page were a huge part of the appeal from the Netflix series. The chemistry between those three cast members was spot on and a big part of what made the show enjoyable.
Yeah, totally. I really hope that this means that the Netflix series is made canon in the MCU. That would be fantastic.
Well, interestingly enough, if you go onto the Disney Plus Marvel Hub page, the Netflix series have been added to the official Marvel timeline in their menu.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So it looks like those shows are actually being treated as canon now.
Wait, even Iron Fist?
Even Iron Fist.
Whoa.
Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee that the actors will be cast the same in future appearances, but we know that a lot are returning, including Charlie Cox, now Deborah Ann Woll, Elden Henson. John Bernthal will be returning as the Punisher, as it's expected that he will still retain his cameo on the Daredevil Born Again series. And there are also rumors that Kristen Ritter will be returning as Jessica Jones in a cameo. So a lot to look forward to. Super excited with the new direction that Dario Scardapane has taken this series and really bringing Marvel fans what they want. The series doesn't currently have a premiere date yet, but it's expected to come out in 2025. Can't wait for that. Of course, if you want your immediate Daredevil fix, you can see him for approximately 90 seconds as he cameos in the Echo television show.
I haven't seen that yet. Is it really only 90 seconds?
Yeah, it's only for one fight scene.
What a ripoff.
I guess if you really want your Daredevil fix, just rewatch the Netflix series.
There you go.
But speaking of Karen Page and Foggy Nelson returning to the show, that brings us to our question of the week. What other character from the Daredevil Netflix series do you most hope returns for Disney Plus's Daredevil Born Again show, and why?
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram and our email newsletter. Be sure to answer before January 17th, because next weekend is our birthday, and we're recording the next episode a little early.
But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, where we find out who would win between the villain characters of Livewire and Klaw. All right, Livewire versus Klaw. As I mentioned at the top of this episode, these are two energy beings, one of them being made out of electricity and one of them being made out of sound. I'm a little bit nervous about how this speculation is going to go, considering that these two characters don't really have a physical essence that can be permanently harmed, I think.
Yeah, how does one energy form damage another energy form? I have no idea. We'll find out.
We'll figure something out. Of course, Livewire is a Superman villain who was first introduced in the Superman, the animated series, back in the 90s. She was an original character that has kind of stuck around in the comics.
Yeah, kind of like Harley Quinn.
Yeah. Whereas Klaw has been a primary villain for Black Panther since his first iteration. He was portrayed by Andy Serkis in the Black Panther movie, as well as Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah, but the character is pretty different in the comics, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, he is. Like, Klaw in the movies was an arms dealer whose hand was severed by Ultron, whereas in the comics, Klaw is more of a scientist whose hand was actually taken by T'Challa himself.
But we'll learn more about the character shortly. Before that, to explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the contestants is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid from which the DC character's statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 1,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character. The contestant with the higher percentage is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither character should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations would play out beat for beat.
And I believe it's my turn to go first with a DC character, so let me tell you all about Livewire. Metropolis's radio shock jock DJ, Leslie Willis, made a name for herself bashing Superman, claiming that he only saved people for attention-seeking and less than altruistic reasons. At the height of her popularity, the owner of the radio station, Miguel Sendoza, decided to switch to a country music format, and he fired Leslie, in part because his wife had been saved by Superman a week prior and he didn't appreciate Leslie's success. Unbeknownst to Miguel, Leslie was a metahuman capable of absorbing and redirecting electromagnetic waves, and after electrocuting her producer, Leslie went to the roof of the radio station's building and climbed its antenna in an attempt to disrupt the signal coming from it. She was struck by lightning on the tower, however, and her nervous system, unable to absorb that level of electricity, was converted into pure electrical energy. Thrilled by her transformation and overcome by power, Leslie decided to attack Superman while he was searching for Lois Lane, who had been kidnapped by Leslie's brother. Initially overwhelmed by Leslie's power, Superman managed to defeat her by seeding a cloud with ice particles, transforming it into a storm cloud that generated a lightning bolt that shorted Leslie's body, just in time to save Lois. You can learn more about Superman in our Superman vs. Dr. Doom episode. Leslie was later kidnapped, along with many other metahumans, by an alien known as the Auctioneer, who captured and sold unique beings across the universe. After successfully shorting the power source to her containment field, Leslie was able to escape and helped Earth's heroes, such as Superman and Mr. Terrific, defeat the Auctioneer by taking over his ship's communication systems, and she was able to broadcast their victory to Earth. After having been seen partnered with the heroes, Leslie decided to turn over a new leaf and agreed to be studied by Star Labs. Her power levels fluctuated over time as her entire body began converting to energy, which slowly caused her to become mentally unbalanced. She escaped Star Labs and took hostages in Las Vegas, demanding a ransom of all of the money in the town. Jimmy Olsen happened to be in Las Vegas at the time, and after he summoned Superman and he and Leslie fought, Superman managed to get Leslie into a containment suit that he wore during a time in the 90s when he himself was also an electrical energy being.
I remember that electric blue Superman.
Yeah. The containment suit instantly helped regulate Leslie's energy, and her sanity was restored. Soon after, Leslie became a member of the Supermen of America, a team Superman put together after traveling the United States and realizing he can't be everywhere all the time. In post-Flashpoint continuity, Leslie was given a new origin. No longer a radio shock jock, but a streaming personality and vlogger made famous for her makeup tutorials and pranks. For one of her pranks, Leslie broke into Metropolis's main power station and took control of the city's power grid with the intention of turning off all of its power except for one illuminated, obscene message that could be seen from space. Superman interrupted the stream, however, and Leslie accidentally electrocuted herself with enough electricity to power Metropolis. Blaming Superman for what had happened to her, she fought him a number of times before Batman created an energy diffusion prison for her on Stryker's Island. A cult managed to siphon her out of prison, however, and Batgirl was forced to bring her down with her father, Commissioner Gordon, when he was Batman for a time. And that's Livewire's brief history. She hasn't been around for a long time. And powers-wise, Livewire is a being of pure electromagnetic energy, making her immune to most physical attacks. She can absorb, store, and project electrical energy strong enough to affect Superman, though high-voltage attacks do use up a substantial amount of her energy and forces her to recharge by absorbing additional electrical energy elsewhere. She is able to phase through most solid matter and can travel along power lines or other forms of circuitry. She could also imbue machines and devices with her own electrical energy to take control of them. She can naturally emit radio waves, and she can charge objects with electromagnetic energy to make them magnetic. Due to the nature of her powers, Livewire is vulnerable to water and cannot affect insulated objects. That's Livewire.
I like how her origin was updated from a shock jock, which is what it was from the cartoon, if I remember correctly, to an influencer.
Yeah, a wannabe influencer, essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I didn't know she was a technopath, though. I didn't know she could control other electronic devices.
Yes.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, she does that pretty frequently with TV screens or just screens of any kind, really.
Okay.
She invades their systems and then she can speak to people through screens.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, this is going to be a difficult fight because let me tell you about Klaw's history and powers. Ulysses Klaw was born in Belgium, the son of Fritz Klaw, a former Hydra colonel who in World War II joined Baron Strucker in an attempted invasion of the African nation of Wakanda in order to learn its secrets. The Klaw family had a history with the mysterious nation, as Ulysses' great-great-great-grandfather had a run-in with the Wakandans in the 1800s and never returned home to tell about it. Fritz, his father, was slightly luckier as he was able to barely escape Wakanda with his life. Returning home to Belgium, Fritz raised Ulysses with tales of the formidable African nation and instilled in his son an intense hatred for Wakanda and its leader, the Black Panther. You can learn more about the Black Panther in his Duel episode against Black Manta. Something of a science prodigy, Ulysses studied physics as a young adult, specializing in the field of applied sonics at the Technical University of Delft in the Netherlands. There, he designed a sound transducer able to convert the vibrational waves of sound into physical mass. However, the device would require vibranium in order to function, vibranium being a rare metal found only in the nation of Wakanda that can absorb kinetic energy. Eager to get his hands on the metal, Ulysses enlisted a group of mercenaries and fashioned a sonic blaster. He and the mercenaries journeyed to the Wakandan border, where they were confronted by its then king and Black Panther, T'Chaka. When the king was overpowered by Ulysses' sonic blaster, 13-year-old Prince T'Challa jumped in the fight to help. As Ulysses fired his weapon on the young prince, T'Chaka leapt in the way of the blast and was killed, protecting his son. In retaliation, Wakandan warrior Zuri impaled Ulysses' right arm with a spear, causing him to drop his sonic blaster. Young T'Challa then picked it up and used it to blow off Ulysses' hand and force the villain to retreat. In the end, Ulysses did obtain a small sample of vibranium, but more importantly, earned an enemy for life in Prince T'Challa, who would grow up to become the new king of Wakanda and the Black Panther. Ulysses spent the next few years building his sound transducer that could convert sound waves into solid form and equipping it into a prosthetic device to replace his missing right hand. He attempted to invade Wakanda again, this time getting at the source of all vibranium called the Great Mound, and bombarded Wakanda with a horde of sound energy creature constructs, which Ulysses referred to as echoes. However, Black Panther was able to track the source of these echoes to Ulysses' secret lab, which he blew up, seemingly killing Ulysses. As it turned out, however, the villain's consciousness survived as his body was transformed by his transducer into a being made entirely out of sound, now able to shape and control vibrational forces at will. With his new abilities, he set his sights on the Fantastic Four and Mr. Fantastic's inventions. Though Ulysses was able to trap the team in a force field, the heroes consulted with Black Panther, who sent them some vibranium knuckle guards that Mr. Fantastic used to defeat the villain. As it turned out, vibranium was one of Ulysses' only weaknesses due to its vibration-absorbing properties that would render his powers inert. Ulysses was imprisoned, but was freed by Ultron, who recruited him into his Masters of Evil supervillain team. The group took on the Avengers, but were defeated in battle, with Ulysses falling to his rival, the Black Panther. His sound form was too powerful to be subdued by conventional means, however, and Ulysses escaped to set his sights on an isotope variation of Wakandan vibranium called Antarctic vibranium, which was found only in the Savage Land, a hidden tropical region in Antarctica located well below sea level. Unlike Wakandan vibranium, which absorbs vibrations, Antarctic vibranium emanates vibrations. Ulysses was thwarted in his attempt to obtain it by the jungle hero of the Savage Land known as Khazar, who caused the villain to attune the Antarctic vibranium at such a frequency as to open a portal to a different vibratory plane of reality, where Ulysses became stuck. Eventually, though, he found his way back home via the Nexus of All Realities, a portal to all dimensions that you can learn more about in our Swamp Thing vs. Man-Thing Duel episode. Ulysses suffered his quickest and most embarrassing defeat at the hands of the mutant Dazzler, whose whole ability is to convert sound into light energy. She absorbed his sound essence only to expel it later in a fight with Galactus, the World Devourer. Ulysses' consciousness then found itself living inside of Galactus' machinery for a time, until he was discovered by Dr. Doom during the Secret Wars event, where heroes were pit against villains in a cosmic experiment on a planet called Battleworld. After returning to Earth, Ulysses became a member of the Frightful Four, alongside the Wizard, Hydro-Man, and Titania, and the team was successful in transforming the Fantastic Four's Thing from his rocky form into his human form as Ben Grimm, thus rendering the hero powerless. Though the Frightful Four were able to capture the remaining Fantastic Four, it was the human Ben Grimm who freed his teammates and saved the day, resulting in Ulysses being imprisoned by Mr. Fantastic in a special vacuum containment unit. An echo construct of Ulysses himself managed to evade apprehension, however, and captured the hero Daredevil in an effort to use his superior senses to locate his original self via a specially built antenna. Daredevil destroyed the Echo's antenna device, though, which destroyed the Echo itself. The real Ulysses would be freed by the Frightful Four, which included the new member Carnage, whom you can learn more about in our Lobo vs. Carnage duel episode. Due to the symbiote's insanity and weakness to Sonics, Ulysses kept Carnage in check to keep the team safe. Carnage turned on the team, however, and stabbed Ulysses with a vibranium spear that caused him to detonate and disperse beyond reconstitution. With his final act, Ulysses used the last of his power to summon a bolt of sound energy that separated Carnage from his host. Though he was believed to be dead, Ulysses was later found as a prisoner of the international peacekeeping agency S.H.I.E.L.D., apparently having reconstituted. That's his backstory. Powers-wise, Klaw's abilities stem from his sound wave body, which his consciousness can vibrate at a frequency to produce a solid form. In fact, he can manipulate all ambient sound in his vicinity for a variety of effects, including creating other solid sound constructs called echoes, project waves or beams of concussive force, and create deafening or debilitating tones. By manipulating the frequency of his own sonic state, he can render himself highly durable, with increased strength, able to lift around 10 tons, and even more when supported by additional vibrational force, or he can render himself intangible. Either way, he is virtually immortal and resistant to physical attack. He is a gifted technical engineer and scientist in the branch of physics that studies sound. His only weakness is vibranium, which absorbs sound, or a vacuum in which he would dissipate. And that's Klaw.
I'm not gonna lie, Klaw's a pretty cool villain.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Red Lantern, although more like a Red-Green Lantern, because Red Lanterns, do they even produce constructs? I thought it was just like lava.
They can.
Shot out.
They can. Although I do think it's dumb that his friggin' weakness is the primary weapon of his rival. That's like
right?
Superman going up against Kryptonite Man.
Yeah, Klaw really needs to find a better enemy than the guy who is best equipped to kill him.
Exactly.
I think he'd be a much more successful villain if he stopped going against the Black Panther.
Definitely not the Dazzler either. That was funny.
But now that we got the characters' histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by his simulations, not the speculation, but it's fun to imagine how the fight could play out. AJ9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the characters have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other character is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the contestants will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The contestants must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then let's get into it. Livewire and Klaw meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
I'm going to say Livewire goes first because electricity moves faster than sound, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So she's going to start by firing a lightning bolt right at Klaw's face, which no way he's fast enough to dodge that.
Well, I mean, if she moves her hand and fires the lightning bolt with lightning speed, you're probably right. He wouldn't be able to dodge it, so he gets hit in the face. But you forget, his physical form isn't normal. It's just vibrational forces that are rendered solid. So, he probably gets blasted onto his back, and he's probably a little stunned, but he's not, seriously injured, right?
Oh,
and you know what follows lightning? That's right, thunder. And as soon as the thunderclap follows her lightning bolt, which is immediately, the thunder is going to empower Klaw, and he's going to convert the sound of the thunder into a construct of a herd of giant stampeding elephants. And those elephants are just going to trample Livewire.
Interesting. Okay. But actually, Livewire, she's just going to convert her body into electricity and zip between the elephants and then zap herself right into Klaw's sonic device that he has on his hand. And she's going to short that sucker, so now Klaw can't use it to project sound anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you think it would be that easy? That's cute. Again, Klaw is made of essentially kinetic sound energy, including his sonic blaster. It's not actually technology.
Well, why the fuck does it look like it is then? Why would he just give himself a normal hand?
Excuse me, something as badass doesn't need a reason?
Yes.
And the answer is no. He has a hand blaster on his hand because it's just that much cooler when he kills you with it. That's why.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Livewire, she dives into his sonic blaster hand, which is essentially just pure kinetic energy. So she gets thrown out of it, I guess. But now she knows what she's dealing with, at least, more or less. And she's going to generate an electromagnetic energy dome around Klaw to contain him.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say this electricity dome is probably making a noise, this low-level electric hum sound, right? So Klaw's going to tap into that electrical hum and amplify it so that it turns into this debilitating, piercing noise that just penetrates the energy field and hurts Livewire's ears so bad that she drops the energy field. And then Klaw is going to shoot this massive concussive energy beam from his sonic blaster at Livewire, and it's going to slam into her like a freight train and cause her body to disperse.
I was going to call bullshit on that piercing sound attack you just did, but I guess she is still able to hear things.
Yeah.
So I guess it would work. Okay, so you fired this beam at her and say her body was dispersed. You think it was a dispersal, but it was intentional to dodge the beam. And Livewire reforms, essentially teleporting right behind Klaw, where she's going to grab him by the back of the neck and just electrocute him at the source, fatality style.
Dude, sonic form. I don't know what you don't get about that.
Yes, solid sonic form.
It would have no effect on him. Sound does not conduct electricity. So she's going to try to electrocute him. He just goes intangible to escape her grasp. And then he's going to shoot a massive shockwave into the ground beneath Livewire, shaking the ground and breaking it up. And he's going to lift these massive boulders using vibrational forces into the air and then slam them down onto her, just burying Livewire like deep into the ground, like 20 or 30 feet in the ground. He buries Livewire, and that grounds her, right? I'm no scientist, but I think at that point her electrical energy form would be grounded and would like disperse into the earth, and she would lose her form. So she'd be gone, essentially. So, match over. You just got scienced.
Oh, two can science at this game, bitch! Let's say when she's grabbing him by the neck, that electric charge was actually to convert his sound form into an electric current, just like a microphone, so that she could transmit his body into space as radio waves. So she wins.
What? Is that how microphones work? You don't know how microphones work.
Yeah, man, they like use magnets or some shit to like turn sound into an electric signal. And Livewire is like a living electromagnet, so in your face.
Magnets, how do they work? But like, you would need some kind of like antenna or something to broadcast the signal. Like, she would need some kind of technology. She can't do that on her own.
No, actually she can. That's one of her abilities that I said she had. She's actually even done her own sonic attacks before by bombarding people who could hear radio waves like Superman or the Flash's children.
Oh, well, good on you for conveniently leaving that out of your bio.
I just said I mentioned it.
I wasn't paying attention to you. Also, radio waves are not the same thing as actual sound, so I think you're full of crap. That's not technically a sonic attack. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, but a microphone will convert sound into a radio wave, and again, she just blasts him out into space to drift forever.
That's stupid, but we could leave the match there. I say she gets buried underground, and you say that Klaw gets blasted into the sky as radio waves.
Yeah, no sound in space.
Yeah, in space, no one can hear Klaw scream. We'll go ahead and leave the match there. We'll run the stats on these characters and find out which of these scenarios happens when we come back with a winner.
AG9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
All right, I was really nervous prior to the match, trying to figure out how these two energy beings would hurt each other. Livewire being electrical energy, Klaw being essentially kinetic energy. I don't know if we found a great solution. We had to get really sciencey at the end there with our speculation, and probably 99% of that is bullshit because you and I are not scientists and we have no idea what the hell we're talking about. But it was a speculation. You know?
Yeah, it was.
Technically.
When it came to figuring out their stats, for the most part, they were going pretty tit for tat, I would say. Like, Livewire is definitely faster than Klaw.
Yeah, but Klaw is stronger and smarter. We said they were about the same when it came to evasiveness, considering they both can go intangible, although have a kind of semi-tangible form that allows them to get punched in the face by the good guys. They're both really destructive. Their damage potential is really high.
They're also both really versatile characters.
Yeah, given that they could use their powers for a variety of effects, like Livewire even has technopathy, and Klaw can create constructs, including duplicates of himself and stuff like that. So a lot of back and forth, but also a lot of like equity between their abilities.
For the most part, there was fighting skill. We said that while Klaw was an experienced fighter, Livewire basically had no training whatsoever. And there was nothing in my research to indicate that she did. She's very much a projectile-based attacker. Very rarely does it come down to fisticuffs. So basically, taking all of these stats into account, Joseph, who do you think came out on top?
I think Mr. Ulysses Klaw is coming out on top of this one, although no one on Instagram agrees with me. Well, actually, I should say 72% of the people who took our poll don't agree with me, but it's fine to be wrong. They could be wrong. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Livewire came out that high. I think just maybe a lot of people are thinking about the MCU version of Klaw and thinking that there's no way that he would be able to defeat someone made out of lightning. That's my guess.
That's probably a really good guess. Well, let's find out who won. AJ9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
The winner of the matchup between Livewire and Klaw is fucking Klaw.
Yeah!
And it wasn't even close. He won 693 of the 1,000 matches, or 69.3%, compared to Livewire winning only 30.7%.
Okay, so Klaw wins around 2/3 of the time.
And honestly, Like, this baffles the shit out of me. Like, I know the discrepancy in the fighting stat is pretty drastic, but damn. I thought I totally had you when it came to, like, our speculation, and I came out of that really confident that Livewire would win, but apparently not.
Well, it's hard to think of an instance in which this fight would come down to hand-to-hand combat, right?
Right, exactly.
But you would have to assume that fighting skill would play at least a small portion of some of the matches, and when you run 1,000 simulations, it was enough of an influence to give Klaw the ultimate victory.
It also just baffles me that sound can beat lightning energy. I cannot comprehend that.
But it's also hard to comprehend lightning energy beating sound too, right?
No, not for me. I totally see it.
But that does it for this duel. Let us know what you guys thought about the results by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Instagram or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by checking out our show notes or visiting our website at dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page where you could join our Dynamic 2.0 tier and chat with us and fellow listeners, our Fantastic 4 tier, which gets you bonus content each month, our X-Force tier that makes you an executive producer of this podcast, or our newest tier that lets you join our Dynamike podcast network. If you can't join Patreon, you could still support the show by signing up for our e-newsletter, also at dynamicduel.com, so you'll never miss an episode.
Next week, we're going to be reviewing the latest DC animated film that has been released, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm starting to hear good things, so I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Nick Abanto,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Andrew Schunk,
and Dean Molesky for helping make this podcast possible. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Up and away!
True believers.
It's electric. Boogie woogie woogie.